In the recent controversy with Ubisoft asking us to get more comfortable with not owning games and to get used to subscriptions instead, it reminded me of how subscription models just don't work for games. It works well for movies, for shows, newsletter, media assets, but not for games, at least for the majority of them. And that's because of how we enjoy games. Sure, on the surface, it's just another mode of entertainment, but the way we consume games is vastly different from the way we consume other content. Let's take No Man's Sky, for example, a game I really liked. And the first time I played it, it was with Xbox Game Pass. That was a mistake at the time. I didn't think I was going to like that game, so I didn't really want to buy it. But having access to Game Pass, I would simply have that mindset for all the games. Now, that isn't necessarily bad. It's still a great way to test out games to see if you like it or not, and later purchase it on Steam if you do. Game Pass is also a very nice way to try out multiplayer games with your friends, which you probably will never play again after 1 or 2 sessions. And that's about where all the praises end. Consider how I didn't mention any other game subscriptions like Ubisoft Plus or EA Plus. That's because I don't really see any value in paying upwards of $50 a month for 3 different game subscriptions. And I think Game Pass already comes with EA games and some Ubisoft games. That's a lot of games that you'll never play. 90% of those games probably don't even appeal to you. So under this illusion, there's only a handful of games that you would put your time in. Hence, having access to this giant library won't really benefit you beyond testing out different titles. And it's not really your fault for wanting to have access to thousands of games. The highlighting features of these services when advertised are always twofold. First, the obvious one, that you'll have access to countless games for the price of a pumpkin spice latte a month. And second, you'll also get to play the new games on launch day. Except, games aren't really playable on launch day, are they? Matter of fact, most of the good games are from studios that don't have any affiliation with subscription companies. There are more problems with it when it comes to subscription-based gaming services, but today I just want to talk about 2 of them. The problem of not owning the game and the problem of friction. To illustrate my first point, let's go back to No Man's Sky. You see, I played No Man's Sky on Game Pass for 50 hours. That's 50 hours worth of time and effort I put into my character and had made progress through the game, which is much more personal to me than being halfway through a show, for example. I would be mildly infuriated if I found out that one of the show I was watching is no longer available in my subscription, because I can just go on to a different service where it is available and watch the rest and be done with it. There's no personalized progression that makes me want to keep coming back to that one show. But to suddenly lose access to a game that I'd put anything more than 2 hours would be devastating, to say the least. I can't just go back to a different service or even pirate it because I won't have access to my save files. And trust me, those companies won't let you have access to your save files if you don't have an active subscription. I've tried. I can spend 10 hours watching all 10 episodes of a show and it will be exactly the same experience for everyone else that had watched it. Then I can move on to something else. If I like a movie more than normal, then I'll probably watch a couple of videos about it and post my overtly pretentious review on Letterboxd. But beyond that, I wouldn't really be upset that I have suddenly lost access to it. That leaving soon tag on Netflix is only ever able to make me think, oh, they still had this? Subscription services, in that regards, would not have the same effect if they went for quality over quantity. This is why platforms like Apple TV Plus wouldn't make sense to have for $10 a month. If all you get is only a handful of shows that are really good, most people would go for Netflix or Prime Video, because if they finish a show, they can be sure that there's another show to move on to before they can even process the ending properly. Good shows get cancelled all the time because they require people's attention to be properly enjoyed. Take 1899 for example, made by the creators of Dark, but it was cancelled after just 1 season. Not because it wasn't good, in fact, for a first season, it actually was pretty good. It was cancelled because according to Netflix, not a lot of people watched it, and the ones that did and enjoyed the show were not very happy with that decision, of course, but after a while, people forgot. That's usually what happens. Shitty reality dating shows get new seasons every year because they keep the eyes wide open and the mind shut, which means fundamentally it's not valuable for the seller to provide the best product they can in a subscription-based business. What does that mean for games? Well, broken on launch day, which is already a pretty big issue, but it'll just be easier to justify. Games will take longer to go out of beta. Updates won't be as effective and exciting because, again, it's more important to keep the user hoping for more, but not really providing it. There's one argument that shines light on its good side though, and that is the fact that a lot of good developers would have access to a constant stream of revenue. making the development process somewhat better. I don't know much about the financial side of game dev. Hell, I don't know anything about game dev, so please do correct me if I'm wrong. But I think for small indie devs, platforms like Patreon do a similar job already, and that's indicative of the community trust and goodwill of the devs, and it's not really a business model. It's more of a direct way for the community to support their favorite devs, and what they get in return is a very enjoyable game that they had a lot of effort put into. And the supporters get to see the process and be somewhat involved in it by providing feedbacks from bug testing, hence making the process of creating the game personal to not just the devs but to a lot of other people. If that was a company, however, all of these aspects would be stripped away. There's no direct feedback that reaches the devs, and even if it does, things need to be approved by board members, investors, etc. And if subscriptions are the only way of playing this game, then good luck seeing any positive change, because they'll also need to focus on the 17th installment of a dying franchise. My second problem with subscriptions, and this actually works for all sorts of media, is the friction it creates that prevents you from going back to something. Be it a movie or a show, but the effect is almost 10 times stronger when it comes to games. No matter how many platforms you subscribe to, there's only going to be a handful of games that you really enjoy, and if for any reason you had to cancel your subscription for a few months, convincing yourself to resubscribe so that you can finish that game you really liked would be nearly impossible. This might sound like the same problem people have with overbuying games on Steam that they never play, but with that, it's more of a matter of self-control. You'd still have access to those games, and you can still get back in whenever you want. For me personally, that has been one of the ways I learned to be mindful about my spendings. It's kind of embarrassing to look at the games I bought and never finished, or never even touched, but it can also be a nice challenge for you to try and get through those games before buying any new ones. Buying them might have been impulsive on your part, but you still made that decision consciously. A game you bought that one of your friends suggested to you. A game you followed the development for a while, then bought the beta and forgot about it. A game that your friend bought for you. I know I have a couple of those games in my library. I should probably get to playing them. I guess what I'm trying to say is that you're already probably sitting on a gold mine of titles that have somewhat of a value attached to them. You don't need to have access to thousands of games, and you don't need to play something on the day of its launch. And if you really like it, then just buy that game, and that game only. But of course, no solution is perfect, and not every problem is a problem for everyone. You might like jumping from one game to another, or playing a game on the day of its launch, and that's totally fine. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, then subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.